we're going to go live. All right, folks, welcome to Astronomy Live. Today I have with me a special guest, FTFE from FTFE. Say hi.
Hello, how you doing? Thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you. Yeah, great to have you. Wanted to have a discussion today about some recent issues that have been going on with YouTube and with false DMCA takedown requests and copyright strikes that are being frankly abused by a couple of different channels recently in our neck of the woods, our space here on YouTube. FTFE, I wanted to ask you, first of all, about some of the issues you had faced recently with false strikes against your channel. Can you give us a bit of
Yeah.
background on that for my viewers who may not have been following that story?
So, obviously, I deal with flat earthers a lot, and there is one particular flat earther called Mr. Cheswick who classes himself as a musician. And he took a sample of my voice saying "Fight the Flat Earth" and created a piece of music using my voice as the main hook in an attempt to mock me. Turns out it was quite a banging tune. So I was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to take that and use it as my outro. And I kind of altered it a bit and it was originally two kind of 10-second clips, and I remastered it, put it into one full 20-second clip and used it as my outro music. And I thought I was perfectly fair in doing this because it was my voice was the main thing, which kind of makes the music a derivative of my work. But apart from that, that was just kind of one of the things. Mr. Cheswick has always said in all of his videos and in streams he's done that anyone's free to use his stuff as long as they kind of say that he's the one that done it. And I always pointed out, Mr. Cheswick wrote my music for me. And he has said in comments several times that, oh yeah, it's funny that you're using that. Never said that I couldn't use it, and then even came on my channel and said that I could use it. So for 3 to 4 years, I'd been using a modified version of the thing that he made using my voice as my outro music. And then during one of my live streams, he was being a bit abusive in regards to COVID stuff. So my moderators did their job and timed him out, which made him very angry. And he decided that he would retroactively remove any permission from me using the music that he created and strike me. But he sent me a bunch of emails saying, hey, I've been timed out. I don't like it. I'm going to strike you. And I was just kind of like, suck it up, big boy. Don't be a dick, and apologies, sorry. Don't be a nasty person, and you won't be timed out in my chat. And he didn't like that, so he was like, right, unless you tell people not to time me out, I'm gonna strike you. And I was like, don't bully me. No. So he did. He striked me, and he hit me with a couple of copyright strikes, which I rejected under, not only kind of fair use and the fact that it's a derivative of my work, but the permissions that he had given me in the past. And he then sent me a bunch of abusive emails because in the process of responding to the copyright, he kind of gets my address and everything. So then he made some threats against me, which is a whole separate issue. But then because I refused to back down, he kept saying, I'm going to strike you more. And it ended up with like over 50 strikes that he hit my channel with, which took my channel away for a little bit until YouTube actually responded to what I was saying and took it down to just 3 strikes, but grouped together. 2 strikes, but grouped together, so I could still use my channel. And then eventually he said, oh, you know what? I'm going to let you have the song, and took away all the strikes because otherwise he would have had to prove that he was taking me to court. So it was just bullying me by using the copyright system, and it affected my channel that so much I got demonetized for a little while. My AdSense kind of went away, and it caused massive problems. And it turns out that the music that he made wasn't even music that he made. He actually took a Mark Ronson, Lily Allen song, stole a bit of that, chucked my voice on it, pretended that he'd made it so that he could claim copyright. And it was just from beginning to end an abuse of the copyright system as a retaliation for being timed out in my stream. I'm no copyright expert, but I felt like I had fair grounds to use that music, being that it was apparently made using my voice to start with, and the fact that he's always said that people can freely use his music. So, it caused a lot of problems just because someone was angry.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for full disclosure, I'm not a copyright lawyer either. I'm not a lawyer of any kind, so don't take legal advice from me or this channel. But my understanding, my naive amateur understanding of copyright law is such that there's a couple of issues there from what I see, a few issues really, and I can't get into all of them from a legal analysis perspective, but a few things I do know as a YouTuber, that there are some caveats to copyright claims, such as commentary and criticism as fair use. And it seems to me, again, this is my opinion, but it seems to me that him using your voice in a song, for example, trying to mock you, that is essentially commentary and criticism of you. You then using that same song, modifying it, mixing it up, and putting it on your channel as your outro is essentially commentary on his commentary of you. It's like, he was kind of trying to mock you. You thought it was funny and actually wanted to use it as your outro, so you're using it in your outro to sort of mock his attempt at mocking you. Like, there's meta commentary involved with all
exactly.
that. And so I think that provides you protection as fair use. So I think somebody in the chat was saying here that although he may have given you permission, that doesn't give you ownership of the copyright. Well, you're not claiming ownership of the copyright. You're not around claiming.
I would say that I had partial copyright ownership from all, the basic kind of research that I did. I didn't own the song, but there would be grounds to say that I partially owned the song in the circumstances. I never said outright that it's mine, just mine. It's just that if there's copyright, I don't believe it fully owns songs to Mr. Jeswick.
Let me ask you something, FTFE. Was there ever a point where you were trying to copyright strike someone else for using that song?
God, no.
Okay,
absolutely not.
So I think that's an important distinction here, because there's the difference between you essentially claiming ownership to the point of saying, I'm going to go strike this person for using this song that I mixed up without permission, that someone else is using it without permission, and I'm claiming ownership of it, and I'm going to strike, say, Mr. Cheshwick. You're not doing that. And so there's a fundamental difference between what I would personally, again, my naive amateur understanding, what I would call claiming ownership, or you are trying to impose your ownership upon someone else to say, I'm going to strike you, you can't use it, and saying, no, what I'm using here in my videos is fair use, I'm allowed to use it because I'm covered under XYZ, and your copyright claim, your DMCA takedown request is false for that reason, because it's fair use, it's what have you. I was given permission on top of that, and even if that permission were to be revoked, it doesn't matter anyway, because it's still fair use. You're commenting on his commenting of you. And so it's not that you're claiming ownership of the work and trying to impose that as a restriction on someone else. On the contrary,
I'm just saying that I've got the rights to use it.
Exactly. And so that, I think, is the essential thing people need to understand here, and this is why I'm making this stream, is because people lately have been abusing the DMCA takedown system, which is a law that we have here in the U.S., and I don't know how it works in the U.K. exactly, but I understand it's similar with fair dealing versus fair use. But fundamentally, people are abusing the copyright takedown system on YouTube to silence comments and videos that they don't like for reasons that frankly have nothing to do with copyright. And so that is the issue here, that people are abusing the copyright system as a way of silencing others. That's not something FTFE is doing. That's something that Cheshwick is trying to do against FTFE. That's something that Gleam is trying to do against other people as well. So I just want to bring this comment up real quick, that FTFE, you posted this on Twitter. You retweeted this screenshot of Gleam saying this, basically threatening someone else with a third copyright strike, or even doing it, and trying to get their channel taken down because my understanding is they used his avatar, his thumbnail that he created in their thumbnails for their videos, just as I've done on this stream's video. I put his avatar in the thumbnail, and the reason I did that, and I've just shown it here on screen, is because I'm commenting on his activity and his behavior. And so, again, it's about commentary and criticism. I'm critiquing him and his work and what he's doing and what he's trying to do to other people based on his so-called copyright, where he's threatening other people with copyright strikes to silence them and even get their channels removed. I mean, for those who don't have a YouTube channel and they're just passively watching, what you need to understand is that if you have 3 DMCA takedown requests within a certain span of time, YouTube will completely remove your account. So you will lose the ability to stream, and you'll even lose the entire account, and all of your videos will be deleted. And so it's very damaging, and this is why it's a cardinal sin, frankly, of another YouTuber to abuse the system in this way, because they wouldn't like it if it was happening to them, if the shoe was on the other foot. And it's not only that, but it's simply illegal. Like, you're not supposed to do this. This is you're supposed to undertake a fair use analysis before you file these things. These are legal matters. This is not something that you play around with. It's not just a joke. Okay,
not only legal, but like it's highly against the YouTube terms of service.
That too. Yeah,
it's very much supposed to be a cardinal sin within YouTube. You know, that if you misuse that system, then your account is supposed to be deleted, which doesn't seem to be being the case recently. But what Gleam is doing, I'm finding particularly disgusting, because he is very much like Cheswick. He's using it as a form of retaliation. There's a YouTuber, Flat Earth Debunker called Beeble, right, who made a video against Gleam, and in the video called him a flat earther. And whether Gleam is a flat earther or not is irrelevant. But because of that, Gleam says that the entire video was a hit piece, so he's within his rights to copyright strike him. And that's, from what I can gather, that's Gleam's mentality. Someone said something nasty about me online. I don't like it, therefore I can copyright strike because he's used my avatar.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but again, I'm not, an expert on copyright, but from what I understand, there's things that have to be satisfied for it to be a legitimate copyright strike. Like, it has to remove the ability for the person that's done the strike to make money off of it, or if it showed that they've lost revenue, or replace it as be a replacement of the original work. Just using Gleam's avatar, and his thing is that he's a musician and he's registered on Spotify and stuff with that avatar. And I don't see how someone using that avatar on a YouTube video could affect any potential revenue that he would be getting as a Spotify artist. There's no connection there to say that it would be a legitimate use of a strike. It's not doing anything to affect him, right?
It's not doing anything to affect him. It's a fundamentally commentary and criticism, and I think he knows that. And his rationale for giving the strike is blatantly wrong. Like, that's blatantly something that, as you said, is against YouTube's terms of service, that they tell you you're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to file strikes just because you don't like what someone says. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean that it's a copyright violation. And I think there's also another common misunderstanding I just want to briefly touch on and address, is that people read that there's several different balancing factors that lawyers will evaluate in determining whether something is fair use or not. And one of those factors is whether it subverts the market for the work. And what they mean by that is not whether, let's say that Gleam publishes a book and it's full of anti-science nonsense, and you or I debunk it, and we completely discredit it, and no one wants to go buy it. Have we subverted the market for that work? Well, not in the way they mean in that law. That's not what that means. It doesn't mean that you did something that is going to cause people to not want to buy it because you discredited it through your commentary. It means, did you essentially replace the market? So if Gleam, say, made his avatar and I went around trying to sell it to other people, say, hey, check out this cool avatar, I'll sell it to you, that would be subverting the market for his work.
Yeah.
But that's obviously not what's going on here. And so just because you feel someone has badmouthed you and discredited you does not mean that you can file a copyright strike. You may have other causes of action against them, as lawyers would say. You might be able to go after them for defamation or something, but that is not something you would act upon through the copyright system. You would not file a copyright strike. You would get a lawyer and you would pursue them with a lawsuit based on what they've said to try to recover damages there. But it would have nothing to do with the DMCA takedown system. No. And something else I want to go back to, that what you said earlier, FTFE, was that you started receiving threats or issues because you had to submit your contact information to file the counterclaim. Is that right? So when you filed the counterclaim, you put in your address, your phone number, all of that.
Which is a mistake on my part, because I have since found out that what you can actually do is register with a company that will then do the counter submission for you. So the address they get is kind of the third party. So that's kind of my fault, that I didn't look into protecting myself enough in that case. But when you get the notification, an email from YouTube, you've got, if you want to submit a counterclaim, click here, and then it asks you to fill in all your details, your name, your address, etc. And that information goes to the person you are sending the counterclaim that did the original strike. So, so because I didn't use the third party, he got all my information.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I wanted to plug a service that I've used in the past when I've run into issues with false DMCA strikes. I just put it in the chat, counterdmca.com. A lawyer named Rob Reed runs this service, and so there's probably other services out there too. You can look into it, but this is one I've personally used and will vouch for, just because I've used it and it's worked for me. Is essentially you are hiring a lawyer to act as your agent for service of process, is what they call it, where you submit the lawyer's address and information as the contact information on the copyright claim, on the counterclaim, excuse me. So when you counterclaim and say, no, I have the rights to this, or it's fair use, the DMCA strike is a mistake, you are actually submitting their contact information, their law office, so that you don't have to expose your personal location, your personal address, your phone number to the person making the claim. So it protects your identity and protects your privacy, and I highly recommend anyone who runs into this issue, whether it's from anyone we're talking about today or anyone else, if you have an issue where someone is, false striking your channel, please, 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 I can't urge you enough, use a service like Counter DMCA. It doesn't have to be that one. I'm not getting any kickbacks from Counter DMCA, full disclosure, but nevertheless, use a service like that one, or find another lawyer who can provide you with that service so that you don't have to put your own information out there. Counter DMCA, for example, is very cheap. I think it's like $1 or $2 to rebut each strike.
And I feel like, honestly, someone like myself that is a full-time YouTuber, and this is my main income, which is why I kind of panicked so much when all my ability to do stuff on YouTube got taken away. A lot of these services have subscriptions. You pay X amount per month, and you have the ability to submit as many claims as you want. And someone that is a full-time YouTuber like me should 100% be subscribing to a service like that. I was dumb that I didn't. I guess I'd never been in that situation, never looked into that before. But if that's the case, and especially with how easy it is to abuse the system, a service like that is, invaluable.
Yeah, I really do think it is. I think it's good for everyone to know about that is an option, because YouTube's not going to tell you that. Like, they're just going to ask, what's your address, what's your phone number, and then they're going to provide that information to the person who filed the strike. And it doesn't matter how ridiculous the strike is or how wrong it is. They may have no claim whatsoever that's valid at all. Like, it could be any video. Like, YouTube is not going to double check to see if the claimed owner actually owns anything in the video. It could be entirely your work, and I've had false strikes against my channel that were entirely my work. I didn't use anyone else's music or anything. It was just a launch video, and I get a strike from some random anonymous person who claims they own my content, and YouTube will enforce that until you file a counterclaim. So I've used Counter DMCA so that whoever did that doesn't get my address, my phone number, my information. And so that I think is very important. And on that note, I do want to say, this is something else that FTFE and I were talking about before the show, was something that I've noticed is that years ago there were a couple high-profile examples where people were filing false copyright strikes against YouTubers and doing this in mass. And YouTube took action against them. It even sued them, even went all the way up to that level. But even at lower levels, I mean, there were examples of people whose accounts were deleted and terminated because they were filing false claims and false strikes. And what I've noticed lately is I haven't seen too many of those examples, at least anecdotally. No. To me, I have not seen YouTube taking action against accounts like Cheswick or Gleam who file false copyright strikes, even when those strikes are ultimately reversed after counter notification. And so that's something I want to call out too, is YouTube itself for not taking more systematic action. I mean, how hard is it really to program something that looks and says, oh, this person's filed like half a dozen copyright strikes, they've all been reversed, they haven't taken anyone to court, and if we look a little closer, it seems quite spurious here. Like, it's not like they've uploaded, you know, a movie or someone else's content without adding some commentary or criticism or something. Like, there's ways of looking at that make it pretty clear pretty quickly that the system's getting abused here, and they're just not lifting a finger to do anything about it. And I can't speak to why that is, but I think it's a real problem on the platform because it emboldens people.
It's a big problem.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
The biggest problem for me is the fact that it's within YouTube's terms of service that you know, if there's a possible breach of the copyright system, then it should be automatically investigated. When Mr. Cheswick struck me and I submitted my counterclaim, the terms of service says that should automatically trigger an investigation into the original claim to see if it's legitimate. Which, you know, if they investigate this claim, they'll find out that Mr. Cheswick never owned the copyright in the first place because he stole not only my voice but the music to make that. You know, then it would be seen that there was lots and lots and lots of strikes that were done that weren't right. So the automatic thing that should be happening clearly isn't, because Mr. Cheswick's channel is still there. I am talking with my YouTube creator, partner guy, and he is trying to email people to see if this is being chased up. But the fact is, Mr. Cheswick's channel, according to YouTube's terms of service, should be gone. You know, and that's just not happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to address a comment here because I think the problem is even more widespread than people realize. Urban Imposter said, that is expecting YouTube to actually do anything except for in favor of large subscribers. And I think that's a popular thought that, well, if I'm Markiplier or someone, like, YouTube's gonna step up. And maybe that's true for Markiplier, but I think there's a lot of examples, even with relatively large accounts, even commercial companies that are facing this issue, and YouTube has been pretty silent on the topic. I think it was it Bungie recently? This was making the news that they received a false copyright strike from some basically kid in their basement who was going around claiming to be the agent who handles, I could be wrong on the company, but I think it was Bungie, who handles copyrights for Bungie, and they were filing false strikes, I think, on Destiny-based content, I want to say. And even Bungie itself got struck by this person, and he was doing it because he was mad about something against Bungie, and he was just going around filing false copyright strikes. To be clear, he didn't own the copyright on anything he was striking at all. He was just forging an identity. I mean, it's purely illegal. And when Bungie tried to get in touch with YouTube about this, YouTube apparently directed them to a useless FAQ that really didn't help them at all. And like, this is the thing. It's a multi-million-dollar corporation, and they can't even get help from YouTube. So what chance do we have? You know, that's what I'm saying.
And the problem is that people abusing the copyright system just seem, oh, they've used my name, my face, or something about me, I'm going to attack that. When YouTube is primarily people commenting on other people's stuff, be it people doing video games and making reviews and commenting on video games or playing the live, or people like me who take other people's anti-science videos and break them down and respond to them, or even flat earthers that take my stuff and do the same thing. You know, that's kind of what YouTube is. And if, you know, this abuse of the YouTube system was allowed to become even more widespread, it would get rid of the majority of the content on YouTube, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's just, I mean, one big thing within the copyright thing at the moment is Nintendo. Okay. So Nintendo have been notoriously butthurt about people having their stuff. And, you know, a large portion of YouTube is people playing video games and people watching that, people doing reviews of video games, people playing video games live, doing speed runs. And there was one guy that his entire channel was doing speed runs of Super Mario 64, right? He was one of the top ranked speedrunners in the world. And Nintendo in one day hit his channel with over 1,000 strikes out of nowhere. And it was, actually Nintendo. And, it was because, oh, he's using our copyrighted material and we didn't give him permission to. But everything that guy did was technically commentary on Nintendo's work. And it's not just little people like Mr. Cheswick or Gleam that are abusing the copyright system. It's multi-billion-dollar corporations like Nintendo that are also being allowed to get away with abuse of the system.
Yeah, that is truly disturbing, because there you're dealing with someone who has high-powered lawyers on retainer who will take you to court, and even if they're wrong, they can bleed you of money just through the process. The process itself can be the punishment, and that is a scary situation to be around. I mean, I avoid the big in of copyrighted content like the plague on this channel. Even if they came out with some space-related thing, like, I'm not going to touch it just because I know it's Nintendo, and I know Nintendo is notorious at coming after people on YouTube. It's real bad. So yeah, it's a real problem, and seeing this kind of activity going on, whether it's Bungie getting strikes from somebody in their basement or Nintendo issuing strikes that are completely spurious, like you said, that are clearly commentary and criticism, and they, by all rights, should lose that in court. It emboldens bad actors who know that they can get away with this kind of stuff. People like Cheswick, people like Gleam, who know that nothing is going to happen to them if they abuse the system. So there's no deterrence. There's zero deterrence. And so it is rife with abuse as a result. And that's what we're seeing now. And I tell you what, YouTube has got to turn this around. Or it's not going to end well at all. I mean, it's really unfortunate too. From a platform level, you look at the situation right now, and I know there's been a lot of negative news about Twitch lately, sort of coming out with some new content guidelines for what you are or aren't allowed to do. Yeah, their policies are crazy, especially when it comes to advertisers, where they want a cut of things. I mean, they really want you to, unless the advertiser is coming through their platform, they don't want them on your channel, sort of thing, where you're not allowed to roll baked-in ads for another company.
Only 3% of the screen for like on-screen stuff, which I think, looking at you've got more than 3%.
I probably do.
With your logo. Yeah, you're breaking Twitch's guidelines.
I'm breaking Twitch's guidelines. Like my little telescope in the bottom right corner here. This is for my telescope, and I'm a science advisor for iTelescope. Therefore, if I put that logo more than 3% of the screen, I'm in violation of Twitch.
Yeah,
this is a real problem. Like, YouTube could be such a landing page for people that are exiting Twitch, and there would be a mass exodus from YouTube if it were a better platform, frankly, if they didn't make these unforced errors. And I see this as a massive unforced error that is not going to bode well for the platform in the future, especially if you're a channel like ours that will sometimes comment, FTFE especially will, all the time comment on other people's pseudoscience and try to provide good information out there. Bad actors are gonna do bad things as a result, and this is what we're seeing now. And so, from my perspective, this is one of the reasons that I've tried to pull back from that kind of commentary on this channel, because I don't want to lose that additional income that I get, frankly, from making videos. I enjoy making this content on this channel, and I don't want to end up with a bunch of
content.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I think there's people out there who obviously do an even better job than I can because they can dedicate more time to it, but I try to contribute what I can, and I can't do that if I'm getting copyright strikes and having to deal with that. Even with counter DMCA or something like that to hide my identity, that's great. But still, once you get a strike and you file a counterclaim, how long is it that they take to reverse that? It's at least 10 days?
Well, when you submit the counterclaim, they have 30 days to prove that they are taking you to court.
Wow. Is it 30? I can't remember the link. Okay.
And if they don't do that within the 30 days, then the strike gets removed. But then once you have the third strike, you've got 7 days before your account gets terminated. Wait, is it 30 days or is it 10 days? I'm getting confused now.
I
It's
thought
either
it
30 days or 10 days.
I thought it
might
might have
be
been
10
10.
days. I
It
might
might
be
have been
wrong
10.
there.
Yeah, but
Yeah. But yeah, so they have to, within that time frame, whether it's 10 or 30, I really can't remember right now, but they have to show that they are taking you to court. Otherwise, the claim gets dismissed within YouTube. And of course, if they've got a legitimate claim, then there's no reason why they wouldn't be taking you to court, right?
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's tough because I will say, as a content creator as well, it's tough to enforce that because you have to have the money to take someone to court, which is kind of a hurdle to have to overcome. I mean, I've had people use my content that, frankly, I felt was not fair. I mean, blatantly, in some cases, people have uploaded my entire videos before with no commentary or criticism. They don't tend to do that as often on YouTube. I will say the most frequent source that I see my videos getting reposted without, to say nothing of attribution, no commentary or criticism, just straight up re-uploads, is on TikTok, where I'm apparently a big deal. I've had 40 million views of my videos on TikTok. None of them belong to me. So I'm a big deal on TikTok, yeah.
Right, okay. So just to clarify, I've gone back into my emails. Now that account notification has been sent to the claimant, they have 10 US business days from the state to respond. The claimant must respond with evidence that they've taken legal action against you to keep the content at issue from being reinstated to YouTube. So yeah, it's 10, not 30. Apologies. But yeah, so they have 10 days to show that they're taking some legal action against you. So I guess that means taken to court or whatever.
Right. And during that period, while you're waiting for this to get resolved, don't they put limitations on your ability to stream during that time? Like you can't do... Yeah.
Once you've had 3 strikes, that's it. You can't do anything.
You can't even do anything.
And your account has 7 days before it's terminated.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are a YouTube partner, then you have a grace period, as they put it, to see if it can get sorted out. And that grace period is basically a couple of weeks or something. But in normal cases, if after the 3 strikes are there, 7 days, your account's gone.
Yeah.
And in that 7 days, you can't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. And even if it's just, I think, I could be wrong, but I think even if you only receive 1 strike, even if it's just 1, I think they put a block on your ability to do live streams for some period of time after you've received the first strike. And then by the 3rd strike, you lose even the ability to upload videos. Is that right?
I could still stream.
You could still stream? Okay.
My first one, but then when it was just 1 strike originally, but then he hit me with like groups of like 10 strikes at a time.
Right. Right.
So 1, and then the second lot of 10, I then couldn't do anything on my channel.
Okay.
But I think when I went into my creator studio, even though it showed us all these strikes, it grouped them. So it was like strike 1, and then it had a list of strikes, strike 2, a list of strikes, and strike 3, and a list of strikes. So it kind of grouped them together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure why.
Well, and I think that was something, I could be wrong, but I'm kind of going off memory here, but I want to say that was a system that YouTube implemented to try to mitigate some of these mass strikers. Where they say, okay, if it's all the same thing and it's like in every video, like honestly, bless you, if it's
Apologies, it's hay fever here.
Oh yeah. No, I think it was the kind of thing where it was like if it's the same piece of content across identical videos or whatever, they would group it together. It's just one big strike, so that you don't end up with like 10 strikes off of one so-called violation that you just found out about. But yeah. I think if maybe, I could be wrong, but I think if maybe they stagger sending them in, they kind of get separated out, and you end up with that 3 strike, even though it's really all the same piece of content. Especially in your case, it was just the one song, but it was in every video essentially.
Yeah.
And so that's how he was probably doing that. And that is frankly not enough to address the issues we're talking about here. Obviously, it's a real problem, and they can like he said. By the 3rd strike, they completely silence your ability to speak on YouTube. You can't upload, you can't stream, you can't do anything. You're just a victim at that point, and you have to wait, a period of time to get your content restored, assuming the counterclaims go through. And I've had it before. This is something else I've noticed is in the most recent strikes I've dealt with. they initially rejected my counterclaim, even though I used word for word the language that Rob Reed's service gave me to use in the counterclaim. I had to say beyond that, beyond the boilerplate language, that, look, this guy is striking me falsely. Like, I had to make that very explicit. You really do have to do that.
No, it's the same. When I responded to, obviously I had to respond to every single strike. And then I would go back into my emails a few hours later, and a bunch of them would come back and say, we don't think you've given sufficient reason why this is a counter. You need to give more information, even though I used exactly the same language in each of them, and a bunch of them were accepted, but some of them weren't.
Yeah.
And there was actually a few where I had to kind of redo it 10 times plus for it to be accepted. And I would just change the language slightly, or just add another sentence, or just be like, he's trying to kill my channel. Can't you see this? There is something fundamentally wrong with the entirety of the DMCA system that YouTube is using. Exactly.
And for someone like you, you really need that in, like, this is your full-time gig, right? So yes. This is like you being forced to take an unpaid week off work or more. Trying to deal with all this. That is totally unfair. It's extremely damaging to people, and something's got to be done about it, frankly, because Cheshwick is still around. There's nothing stopping him from doing it again if he felt like it. And, exactly. We hope he doesn't, but this is the problem. We shouldn't have to be at the mercy of bad actors behaving nicely. That is not how this should work. There should be punishment. There should be repercussions for abusing the system like this, and right now there aren't any, and that's a real problem.
I mean, and this isn't to say, though, that the copyright system shouldn't be used. There is legitimate uses for it. If someone just straight up takes your video and posts it on their channel, then you're fully entitled to use the copyright system. And I've used it twice, both on Howard George Stirrup, who just took 2 of my episodes of Flirts at Idiots, uploaded them exactly as they were to his channel. Nothing in the description, nothing saying that it belonged to me, and then post on Twitter, check out my new video. And I said, why have you done that? Can you take it down? And he was like, no. So I used the copyright system. And would you agree that was a fair use of the copyright system?
Oh, certainly. If they just re-upload your work and they're not attributing it to you, attribution doesn't even necessarily apply, but they just re-upload your work, there's no commentary or criticism, that is not fair. Like, how can you make the argument that's even fair use? And yeah. I had an issue. I had not filed I'm not going to file a copyright strike, but I did have a real serious issue with something Globebusters did just after the Artemis 1 launch. They re-uploaded, they took for their live stream my entire launch video of Artemis 1, and the whole time the video is playing, they're not talking about my video or me. They're talking about something else. I forget what it even was, but it was something else completely unrelated. And my video is just playing from beginning to end. They finally said something about my content. At the very end of the video, I showed a still photo of Artemis that I tracked the next day with the telescope as it was heading into deep space. And they basically made fun of my grainy little picture of it, barely over the horizon in deep space. Okay, fine. I don't have a problem with them using that photo and commenting, even making fun of it. That's fine. But it had nothing to do with the launch video that preceded it, that played for like 8 minutes, and they didn't even comment on it. I'm like, that's not fair. That's not how fair use is supposed to work.
Excuse me. The air is so dry up here. I do apologize. In Britain, Scotland especially, we are not used to hot weather, and when it's been like 30 degrees Celsius here, which in Scotland, we can't move anymore. So I do apologize.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, no, you're right, and that isn't fair use. That's just displaying your work whilst not talking about it. And the situation there could arise where people could take clips of Globebusters stream because they want to, laugh about some of your clips, and then it would never be attributed to you. It'd be attributed to Globebusters. That is something that could take away from your original work, right?
Oh, certainly. I mean, I think it's a bit, more than a bit unfortunate. That live stream they did has had more views than my video on my channel. More people have seen my launch video on Globebusters than have seen my launch video on my channel. Okay. I mean, they honestly only, from what I can tell, they honestly only used it because they wanted something eye-catching to play in the background while they talked about other stuff. And then they finally addressed the, like I said, the still photo at the end, which they could have used, but it didn't require the use of all this launch video. And this is another factor that they talk about with fair use, is using the minimum required to do the commentary. I've had people complain before when I've responded to something that I only used the part that I'm responding to, but you didn't show the rest of it. Yeah, because you're not supposed to. You're only supposed to show what you're actually responding to. I'm not going to just re-platform someone else I'm responding to because I'm not even talking about 90% of what they talked about. I'm talking about this one bit that I'm saying is wrong or whatever. I'm only going to use that bit. That's what you're supposed to do.
The entirety of a Flat Earthers video.
Yeah, exactly.
Responding to them filming themselves while driving their car, and even though that's dumb and you shouldn't do it, that's not the things that I want to respond to. So, I don't. Yeah, they're like complaining that you're not using all of their stuff. That's backwards.
Yeah, I mean, people are going to complain no matter what, but it's like I want people to understand, like, that's a very deliberate choice, and in fact, that's what the rules say you should be doing for fair use purposes. Now, with all of that said, I'm putting my hand on the Bible now. I'm not going to file a copyright strike against Globebusters because, although in my opinion it's not fair use, and I think FTFE would agree, they would at least try to make the argument that, well, we commented on a part of it, therefore it's fair use. Yeah. And I think ultimately I could win that in court, but one, that would be expensive, and two, in my opinion, it is a cardinal sin to abuse the DMCA takedown system. If someone even has a chance of trying to argue that their use of my content is fair use, I'm generally not going to file a strike. I did send them a message asking them to remove that section of their video, since it's clearly just my video with no commentary on it.
Which is what YouTube suggests you do.
Which was what YouTube suggests I do. And they did not respond. I tried posting a comment publicly after they didn't respond. That comment got deleted, and I'm now blocked on that channel. And, all this, to be full disclosure, all this occurred before Bob Nodell, sadly passed away. But I'm still not going to file a copyright strike against it because it's such a serious action. It has such... it has such profound effects on a channel, and it's not an action to be taken lightly. And this is the problem. We're seeing people take this action very lightly, and there's no consequences for it. So I just wanted to have this stream and have FTFE on here to talk about this and to call it out and to make people aware, especially that if they become a victim of it, please use an anonymizing service like Counter DMCA. Do you want to talk a bit more about, I don't know if you want to, and it's fine if you don't, but do you want to talk a bit about more the consequences that you faced because he had your information and your contact information?
Yeah, well, a lot of threats, really. Got my phone number, so I started getting phone calls from him where he made straight up threats of sending people to my house. Lots of emails saying about how he knows bad people, and that if anything happens, then the bad people will come and sort me out. As well as, for some reason, admissions of criminal activities at his house. And then he was basically saying that, oh, if you send the police here and they find the things that I'm doing, then the people that I liaise with will be really unhappy with you. And I was thinking, wait, if police turned up and found illegal activities in your house, then the people that you deal with would probably be like, so why are the police here? Oh, wait, because you're arguing with someone online. Yeah, you're the problem. I mean, that's all dumb. But yeah, so I got a whole bunch of threats, which, probably weren't serious. It was probably just him blowing air. But I have a family, and he legitimately had my address. So I had to take those claims seriously. I logically had to, because I have a family to look out for. So I've reported those threats to the police, and there is currently an investigation into the threats that he's made. Luckily, through the system, I also got his address and everything, so the police have that. So the fact that YouTube tried to make you give your address, which then goes to the person that's doing it, I think is an issue. That should be changed entirely. And, not only that, but the fact that it took away my income, with what happened, one of the consequences was that my channel was no longer monetizable for a while. So like you said, I missed out on, a week's worth of income whilst I was trying to deal with this nonsense. So as well as having to deal with all that and try to sort that out, I had to also deal with, talking to two police forces, both mine where I am in Scotland and his down in Liverpool. So, yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's really bad. And I'm gonna make a suggestion here for YouTube that is probably a foolish suggestion. Again, I'm just speaking as an amateur here. I'm not a lawyer, but YouTube has your address because you are partnered. They send you a check. They know where you live. This kind of thing. They've got your contact information. What is to stop them from providing that agent for service of process? I mean, here's an idea. How about when someone files a copyright strike against someone like FTFE or me, where YouTube has our address because we are partnered, how about they act as the agent for service of process? They can just, because all the agent for service of process does is they just forward the paperwork. If you get sued, they're not your lawyer. They're not promising to come defend you. They're just sending you the paperwork, the package that says, here, you've been served. Like, okay, why can't, I don't know. It's probably foolish, but it would be nice. It would be nice if YouTube would do that, because I think it would take away at least a portion of the incentive to engage in these false strikes, because they are a way to get people's private information, their home address, their phone number, and harass them like happened to you. And if YouTube took that step of saying, okay, fine, we'll intermediate at least to forward the paperwork. We're not going to tell you where FTFE lives. We're not going to give you his phone number. It would at least protect against that kind of personal harassment. I don't think that's going to happen, but it would be nice if it did. And it's just things I'm getting up on my soapbox about, because this is just ridiculous. This is just over the top.
There's many ways of dealing with that. They could even say within their terms and conditions that any information you receive through this cannot be used for harassment. So if they then harass me like Mr. Cheswick did, I could be able to provide that evidence to YouTube, and then they've broken YouTube terms of service, and YouTube could deal with it that way. But that YouTube don't do anything to say that that's a bad thing. They're just like, yep, here's that person's address.
Yeah,
it's wrong.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. You make a great point there. Like, that ought to be. I don't see why not. There's zero reason why that's not baked into the policies. It ought to be that if you are using someone's personal information that you obtain through a DMCA request, whether that request is accurate or not, you shouldn't be sending threats to them. And if you are, like, I'm not talking legal threats. I'm talking like you had implied physical harm to you and your family. Like, if that's happening, they ought to terminate the account, no questions asked.
Exactly.
You can handle your little DMCA fight in the courts. That doesn't even involve YouTube at that point. But they should be terminating the account if that's happening, and it did happen to you. And he's still on the platform, so
he released a new video today. And it's just like, it just seems like there's no consequences to YouTube do not care that their platform can be abused in this way. If I hadn't fought it, I guess my channel could be completely terminated right now, and Mr. Cheswick would still be here. Where's the justice? It doesn't make any sense. Surely there is somebody at YouTube that is looking at these claims. Is it all just completely automated? It blows my mind how badly the whole thing, because it's a legitimate system that needs to be there. It is. There needs to be something that gives you the ability to protect your work. I spend weeks, sometimes months, making a video, and that's my work, and I'm proud of it, and I should have the ability to protect it. But that ability to protect it shouldn't be so easily abused.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's ridiculous. I've been working on a video for months now as well, and it's going to be coming out soon. And what's to stop someone from, filing a false copyright claim? Of course, if that happens, appropriate action will be taken. But on YouTube's side, it seems action is not taken, and this is a real problem. So when you have that, and you have a bad actor, especially in a high-profile situation like this with Cheswick, where everyone knows, at least on our circles, like, people know what happened to FTFE recently, and people like Gleam see that and say, oh, I can get away with this. And even if I lose the copyright claims ultimately, nothing bad's going to happen to my account. So there's nothing stopping me from doing it. And at the very least, I get to stop someone up for 7 to 10 days, where they can't get any income, they can't stream, they can't upload videos, and if that's a primary source of income for them, that's a real problem. Even as a secondary source of income, it's like that's You're taking money out of someone's pocket on a completely fraudulent basis. That is not okay.
And let's think about it. It's not just taking money out of my pocket, right? But YouTube get 30% of everything I make, right? So isn't this taking money out of their own pocket? All right, I'm not making them millions and millions like PewDiePie and Markiplier and Mr. Beast, right? But my channel makes a fair income, enough for me to have, a nice comfy life with my family. And YouTube get 30% of that. So when I'm gone for a week, that's 30% of my income that YouTube now don't have. It doesn't make sense for them either.
No, it doesn't. And all of this, honestly, all of this could be stopped relatively easily if they would just take action against people who file false strikes like this, especially when we have ample evidence of abuse, of threats, and of inappropriate motivations for doing it in the first place. Like, the motivation for Gleam to do what he was doing and threatening to do had nothing to do really with copyright. It was, oh, I didn't like what he said. And, he talked about Where's Wally, for example. He said he threatened Where's Wally with copyright strikes. I chatted with Where's Wally by DM, and I'll say Where's Wally confirmed, like, he had done a couple videos on Gleam, and Gleam was okay with it at first, and then he suddenly turned sour on the third video and started making threats and all of this. But Where's Wally still has Gleam's avatar on these videos. If you search for Where's Wally in Gleam, you'll see Where's Wally's videos where Gleam's avatar is still in the thumbnail. And Gleam's not taking action. Why? Because it was never about copyright. It was about, I don't like what you're saying, and unless you shut up and stop saying it, I'm going to strike you. That's
about
not
being a bully.
Yeah, exactly. That's all it is. And that is not what the system is for. So I just wanted to have this stream to discuss these issues and get this out there and let people know what's going on, and let people know, again, I'm going to post the link one more time here to Counter DMCA. If you run into this issue, use a service like Counter DMCA. Don't let your private information be exposed to these people, because they will abuse you. They will threaten and harass you in real life, and that is totally over the line. And so use a service like Counter DMCA so you can provide a lawyer's address and phone number instead, and then they have no way of directly contacting you or harassing you. And if they want to go through with a lawsuit against you for the copyright, they'll have to send that to the lawyer, who will then forward the documents to you. But that's all I had to say on this. And FTFE, feel free to give your comments as well here before we wrap up. But I don't want to take any more of your valuable time. And I want to thank you again for coming here on Father's Day and having this discussion with me.
I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a very important conversation because, I am a YouTuber. I do this full time. I'm not humongous, I'm not a Mr. Beast, but this is what I do. And if it's so easy to take down someone like me with false copyright strikes, then it can happen to anyone, and even if you're someone really big and you've got YouTube on your side, it's still going to be a hassle and stuff, because the ability to misuse it is so easy. The entire system needs a fundamental overhaul to make it fair. It's a vital tool that YouTube has, because you do need to protect your work, but it's set up in such a poor way that bad actors, people that are angry, or people that just don't understand what it's for, can use it in such a destructive way. It's mind-blowing how a company like YouTube have let it get to this stage. Don't be dumb like me. Don't give your information. If you're a YouTuber and you get struck, don't do what I did. Use one of those third-party people that will work through, because the headache of then a potential nut bar like Mr. Cheswick having your address is an extra stress that you just don't need in a time like that. But thank you very much for having me on, and happy Father's Day to all the dads out there.
Thank you very much. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you again to FTFE for showing up and having this important conversation about what's been going on lately with YouTube. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and we'll be coming out with more content soon. Until next time, clear skies, folks.